Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Primetime Carolina. I'm your host, Tanner Blue, along with my co host, Dave LaFave, and we're here to talk Carolina Panthers. Per usual, we got free agency news, we got Deshaun Watson news, we got draft news, we got the Panthers going to win the Super Bowl kind of news, and we got the Panthers probably going to suck kind of news. It depends on whatever kind of news you want. We got it. What's going on, brother?
Man, just out here being a Panthers fan, watching all the news break, wondering what's going to happen next. Oh, and by the way, I did a little research. I went back and looked at our YouTube channel. We just passed the 1 year mark of our first episode. So pretty cool, pretty cool.
I feel like we should have 10 million subscribers already, but I'd say we're close enough.
Yeah, we're close. We're close. We're like right there.
So yeah, I mean, a lot has happened since we talked about a week and a half ago. We were letting the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes play out, letting free agency play out a little bit. Everything's kind of died down, so now we want to get into the meat and potatoes of everything. Panthers have been very active in free agency. The past couple seasons, they've been a little bit more active than they have been. Used to be you're a Panthers fan, and you might see a guy get re-signed, and that was about it. Not much would happen. Now, I've never been the type of person that believes free agency wins you the Super Bowl, but some good things can happen. And I think the Panthers, for the most part, for what I see on paper, have done a nice job, if I must say. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like they put themselves in a position where we're going to stupidly go into next season feeling a little optimistic. And as we know from the past, that's the dumbest thing we can do. But as Panthers fans, we just want to feel success so bad that we are silly enough to go into every season with the same optimism, and we fall for it every year. And I think, a nice free agent class, and then potentially, you know, a, um, a strong draft class behind it could be just enough to get us to believe again, so we can be ultimately let down and feel right back at home where we started.
Free agency is the absolute king of making you feel like your team is doing well. I feel like every team, for the most part, unless you're just constantly losing guys, you're like, oh, we signed this guy. Like, it's a pretty good move. I think we're going to be a contender next year. Well, let me tell you this. I like a lot of what we've done, and we're going to get into it. But I still want to hold out. I'm still holding out just because I know how things are as a Panthers fan. Not saying I don't like these guys. I think we got some good players, but when you're a Panthers fan, you gotta maintain your optimism as best you can, as well as all the negative stuff that happens as well.
Yeah, big facts. You know what I like about this free agent class is the two offensive linemen we brought in, Corbett, and then Bradley Bozeman from Baltimore. These guys seem like solid interior linemen. And after, uh, you know, as soon as the free agency period started last year, the first thing we did was run out and sign, you know, um, Irving and Elfline. So hopefully this year we made some better decisions along the offensive line. And I feel like we did. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I like the signing of Bozeman and Corbett, two really really solid guys that we need in the offensive line. And look, if you saw our offensive line play last year, and honestly the past 10 years, you would say, "Wow, the Panthers should probably invest in their offensive line." This is the first time they've done so with actual starting caliber players instead of signing guys that are backups, hoping that they can work out. I got two friends that are actually diehard Ravens fans, said that they were really, really sick that they did not re-sign Bradley Bozeman. They really wanted him to come back. And I'm glad that he's in Carolina. I mean, but at the same time, the deal really wasn't all that crazy. It's only for a year. I wonder what really convinced them to come. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I guess the Ravens just needed to save money and, couldn't spare $3 million on an offensive lineman. I don't know. I know one of the best ways to know if a player is good or not that you're not sure about, a player that you don't know much about, is to hop on social media and look at the replies. And Bradley Bozeman is one that I looked at the replies, and the Ravens fans were very sad to see him go. So anytime you see the fans of the past team crying that he's gone, it lets you know you're getting a player that is being missed. So he must have given them something to hold on to.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the two guys I know said that they're pretty upset they didn't get him back. So, and then we get Austin Corbett, a guy who was a starter for the Rams, just won the Super Bowl. The definition of consistency there, I like it. Now, if you're looking at the center all the way to the right tackle position, I believe is he a right guard or a left guard? I think he's a right guard, right?
I believe he played right guard last year,
Okay.
yeah, but I would imagine he could probably do either or.
Let's say hypothetically, you got Bozeman, who's your center. Hopefully not a retread of Matt Paradis, because last time we signed a center in free agency, we thought it was going to go well. It didn't.
Nope.
So we got him. That right guard, you got Austin Corbett, and then that right tackle, you got Taylor Moton. I mean, that's a solid group right there. Now, at left guard, you could potentially do Deontay Brown. You could do Brady Christensen, however they want to go about that. And then that leaves you at left tackle where you could do Brady Christensen, and then left guard, you can do Deontay Brown. Or depending on how the draft shakes out, that whole middle to the right side is looking pretty good.
Yeah, just, so far in the offseason, I mean, it's clear the Panthers have improved their offensive line as to, compared to what they had last year, which, last year was pretty much a joke. I mean, it was dumpster fire last year. So, it's good to see them improving. And like you said, we'll see how this sets them up in the draft. And I guess we can get through this before we start talking about that, because I know if we start that conversation, we won't ever finish talking about this. But the free agent class, I'm digging it, man. I'm digging it.
I am. I'm digging what I see so far. And just real quick before we get to a little bit more of some of the guys we got here, when you look at these signings, is this something that strikes you as a Scott Fitterer and Dan Morgan class, as opposed to last season? It was a Matt Rule kind of in charge, making the calls, making the signings here about who he wanted.
Yeah, Tanner, you brought that up the last time we talked, and I wasn't so sure, but I'm starting to think that that's pretty much what's going on here. I mean, just in the moves we made, it seems like they're much smarter decisions, less impulsive decisions too. Seems well calculated. We're filling holes with good starting players on good deals, but nothing crazy. If you look at all these deals, you're looking at 1 to 3 year deals. So it's not like we're locking anybody up long term, getting ourselves stuck in situations we can't get out of. So I like what I see. And yeah, I mean, I feel like when, the last offseason came along, Scott Fitterer had barely stepped in the building. I mean, he was freshly hired. So I think this year he's kind of got his feet in the dirt a little bit more, and he's kind of making a lot more decisions. And I like the direction we're headed here. It's a solid free agent class so far.
Absolutely, I agree. And in all these contracts I'm looking at, these are things that I can live with. This is nothing that's like, oh my God, I can't believe we broke the bank on this guy. I can't believe we really overspent on this guy. I mean, these are all situations that we can handle. And at the making of this video, apparently the Panthers have the most cap space in the NFL now. Is that correct?
Yeah, last I heard that was the case, which is pretty bonkers, but it's pretty,
I mean,
cool.
that is wild. I mean, considering we have a high-paid running back on our roster and obviously a quarterback that is potentially on the move, something we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. But, this is what good and solid GMs do. I'm not going to say Fitterer is the GOAT. We've got a long ways to go, but these are good contract moves, and we got good players, and we still have cap space to go.
Yeah.
I mean, look at a team like look at the team like the Indianapolis Colts. Minus the quarterback situation, now they have Matt Ryan. We'll see how that goes. But before then, they had probably the most well-equipped roster in the NFL, had the most cap space. That's good GM, moves right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that the Panthers have always, made mistakes with in the past, especially Marnie Hurney was really bad about it. A guy would have a good season or two, and then he would just be like, boom, cornerstone of the team, give him a huge contract, and then it just wouldn't work out. We saw that happen many times. Jake Delhomme was a great example. Jake Delhomme obviously was a really good quarterback here for a long time. He was, by definition, I guess, the franchise quarterback. He, made a Pro Bowl, took us to a Super Bowl, and he was a good quality quarterback, but he wasn't the type of guy that you just hand the keys to and say, go. And he had a huge contract, and, eventually he couldn't live up to that contract, and the team started falling apart. And, that was the beginning of the end for that era of the Panthers. But, yeah, looking at this class, I really like Xavier Woods. I like the Xavier Woods signing. He's a quality starting safety in the NFL. He's been successful in the past. And I think and also a guy not on this list because this just happened, in the past hour or whatever, the Panthers are bringing back Justin Burris as well. So I think between those two guys, I'm starting to wonder what the Panthers are planning to do with these two guys, if they're both going to be starting safeties. Jeremy Chin moves down to safety, or if this just gives them flexibility so Jeremy Chin can move down to – or excuse me, did I say safety? I meant linebacker. Can move down to linebacker and then, in certain packages or whatever. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Justin Burris is a depth move or if they plan on using him in some packages or having him on the field all the time, as a starting player, which I know in the past they've always kind of seen him as a starter. So we'll see what happens with that.
I think you bring up a really good point. I think anyone that watched Panthers football, Jeremy Chin's rookie year versus Jeremy Chin's second year would notice a big difference, and that's because they had him playing out of position pretty much all season long. And he still managed to have a solid year last year, but he was nowhere near the impact player that he was his rookie year. And I don't think that's a knock on him. I think that's a knock on coaching and putting him in the wrong position. So, they're bringing in these veteran safeties and re-signing some guys, which is good for two things. One, it gives Jeremy Chin the chance to go back in the box and make plays the way that we know that he can. Second, this does give us depth. I mean, looking at this secondary now, I know we're not going to re-sign Stephon Gilmore, unfortunately. AJ Boye is gone as well. But, you got some guys, you got some depth. I mean, you got players. I mean, you're not in the worst position possible. So I like it. I like what they've done with the secondary. Didn't know Burris had come back. I'm breaking news here on the Primetime Carolina podcast. I love it. But yeah, I mean, you're looking at some solid pieces there in the secondary, and maybe not the greatest players, but I mean, you got guys that have been there, they know the system, and you got depth, and that's kind of all you can ask for at that position.
Yeah, and we talked about a little. Well, you and I talked about, not on the podcast, but we talked about the Dante Jackson move a little bit, and kind of what we thought. And it's gonna be interesting to see how they use him. We both kind of agreed that if they put him in the nickel, he's kind of worth the contract. He's a good player. When he works in the nickel, he's a lot better there than on the outside. He's able to use his speed a little bit more. And then the numbers on the contract aren't terrible. He's, even if you put him in the nickel packages, he's still going to be seen as the number 2 corner, and the money that he's making is, pretty much in line with that. So I think it was a pretty good deal. And then the Panthers also brought in, where's the linebacker? I was just saying, Damian Wilson. He seems like a pretty good player. I don't know a ton about him, but he seems like he has a chance to be a pretty good player. And they also brought in, I forget his first name, Littleton from the Raiders, but he's not on here for whatever reason. But I don't remember a ton about him either. When he played with the Rams, I know he had a really big game against us. I think it was like 3 years ago. I know he picked off a pass and he had like 14 tackles. I think it was the last year Cam Newton was the starter, so that must have been 20 19 maybe.
2019, yeah.
It was 2019, so 2 years ago.
Yeah, I know we've talked extensively about Dante Jackson. I think I like him a little bit more than you do, but I think we both agreed that, we didn't mind keeping him, but we certainly didn't want to overpay. But I think the Panthers, they found it right there in the middle. You're getting a guy who's a quality starter. He's going to do some good things, but you can't overexert him and make him, your number one all pro corner. He's just not that guy. He's going to make some really good plays, and then he's going to make a couple plays that make you want to scream at the TV. But I like him in the nickel, and this brings, to the point where you're looking at, obviously, J.C. Horn will be starting as the number one corner. And then you got Dante probably going to be in that slot, in that nickel. And then that's probably going to leave C.J. Henderson and Keith Taylor to battle out for that number 2 spot on the outside corner. I like C.J. Henderson. I think he's done some okay things since he's been here. But my only thing is that he's kind of small. He's a smaller corner, and I think sometimes that showed last year. I think I like Keith Taylor a little bit more because he's just a little bit longer, a little bit bigger. But, that's 2 guys that can compete and play things out, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I know you and I really like Dante Jackson more on the inside. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Panthers use him, being that they just gave him a number 2 corner contract. And I know they kind of have always – or not – I mean, they really do tend to see him in that role. He plays a lot of snaps out there. Even though he's really an undersized, speedy guy, you would think he makes more sense in the nickel. And, like you said, C.J. Henderson is out there as well. And the thing to remember about C.J. Henderson is, like, I know he hasn't been overwhelming out there, but he's still very young. I think he's like 23 years old. So, I mean, I think he'll be 24 when the season starts. So, this guy had a rough start in the NFL. He never really got his feet under him. After he was drafted in the top 10 by the Jaguars, and he's in a bad situation with a disappointing team, and he just was on bad teams, and he just never really got comfortable in the NFL. And then last year he gets traded, during the season, never gets too comfortable with us. We have a very up and down year. So, I'm not giving up on CJ Henderson just yet. He's still very young. He's 23. He's still a kid. So give him a couple years, see if he can get comfortable, get his feet under him, turn into the player that he has the potential to be, and then we'll talk about him. But I'm not giving up on C.J. Henderson yet.
I agree 100%. I mean, I'm not going to give up on him. I think he's still got a lot of potential, and I look forward to what he's going to do. So, we've covered the offensive line. We covered the secondary. So talk about an underrated signing here. The Panthers all of a sudden have went from one of the worst special teams to, in terms of kicker and punter, to one of the best. Johnny Hekker, a hell of a kicker, just won a Super Bowl with the Rams. He's got a freaking cannon on that leg. We re-signed Zane Gonzalez, first consistency we've had at kicker since Graham Gano in the early days. We're looking, a pretty solid punter and kicker combination.
Yeah, that's the best combo we've had in a long time for sure. John Casey, Todd Sauerbrunn Jr. over here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with it, man. I'm with it.
Dude, I'm not sure Hecker's not the best quarterback on the roster right now.
He might be.
Yeah, we might have to put him in.
He might be. And then taking a look at some other guys, you bring back Zylstra, which, he's a fringe roster player. He comes in, makes a couple grabs. I'm cool with it. He's not big on the cap. Rashawn Melvin, another depth guy. He's back as well. Obviously, you mentioned Justin Burris. We do bring in Rashard Higgins. He's going to be a guy that I think is, he's going to be borderline. He's going to be fighting for that number 4, that 3 and 4 spot. And the only reason I say that is because I know he's been inconsistent in Cleveland. And I know he's one of those guys that will make a really, really good play, and then he just kind of fades off. But we got young guys that we've got, like Terrace Marshall Jr. and Shi Smith, that I really, really want to see get a chance. I think it's going to be tough for him to fight for the playing time there, but he is a veteran. He does have that. But we've got young guys that I really want to see get a chance.
Yeah, I want to see those guys get a chance too. But I also really like Rashard Higgins, mostly because he's one of those guys you could pick up in fantasy, and then he might surprise you with 15 points. But he's just got that over the top speed. He's one of those guys who can get behind the defense and make some plays. So if he's used the right way, he might be able to find a role in the team. We'll see what happens. Like you said, Shi Smith and Terrace Marshall, two guys that we really want to see get on the field because we saw in the preseason last year that they had a ton of potential. And then as the season went on, it seemed that they got less and less opportunities as the offense just fell apart. So hopefully moving forward, we'll get to see those two guys step into some bigger roles and make some plays because they both have a ton of potential and, they can make some exciting things happen if they get the football in their hands. So I agree with you on that. I hope to see, those two guys be 3 and 4 on the depth chart. And then, Higgins and Zalistra can fight for 5 and 6 or whatever. Or if we want to draft somebody, bring somebody in, we, see what happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then you look at some of the guys that we lost. Excuse me. Look at some of the guys we lost. Hassan Reddick, obviously, you would have liked to see him back, but he doesn't. He goes to Philadelphia. He gets a good contract there. Shout out to him. He earned it.
Hey, stop right there. He's looking at an average of $15 million a year, right?
Correct.
Would you have rather seen us just re-sign him rather than sign Dante Jackson?
I mean, it's tough. I wanted Hassan Reddick back, but then I also have mixed feelings because you kind of have Burns. They're kind of the same player. And then I don't know if this is a coaching issue or a player issue. There was a lot of bad parts in the run game that involved them. And if I had gun to my head, if I had to make a choice, I'd rather pick Hassan Reddick because I think a premium pass rusher is better than a premium. I wouldn't even a premium pass rusher is better than a nickel corner if I had to guess.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he brings more value to the table than Dante Jackson does. I mean, Dante Jackson's an all right player, but Hassan Reddick at times last year was dominant. And when you pair that with Brian Burns, they were pretty unstoppable. So it seems like the team's really rolling the dice on Yetur Gross-Matos, who has flashed. He's made some great plays, some really good plays in the NFL, but he's had injury issues. And, so if he can stay on the field, he has potential to be a really good player, but it would have been nice to, have him as depth and just, bring him in certain situations like they had been. And like you said, the run defense has been an issue, but out of the two of them, I felt like Hassan Reddick had a better year against the run than Brian Burns did.
I agree. I think he did. And like I said, I would have liked to bring him back, but I guess if you don't bring Dante Jackson back, I'm not saying you don't have depth at corner, but it's a little bit lighter than you probably would like it. I mean, you probably could have brought someone else in, but I don't know. I think it's give or take, it's tough, but I personally would have liked to see Reddick back as well. So shout out to him.
At first, when he signed his contract, I was like, yeah, we couldn't pay that. But now here we are, and we just paid Dante Jackson, what is it, 35? His a $35 million contract versus a $45 million contract, and we have, whatever it is, 27 million, 30 million in cap space. We now have the most cap space in the league. I think we could have afforded it, really, at the time. But I guess at the time we were in the Deshaun Watson race, so that probably had a lot to do with it. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Hindsight's 50-50.
That's right. We'll see how he does in Philadelphia. I think that's a good move for him. Amir Abdullah, obviously a name that's not on this list I'm not seeing is Donta Foreman, which we signed as well. Good,
true.
A good bruising running back. Little Derrick Henry light version. I like that. It sucks to see Abdullah gone. I figured he would be after that signing. I thought he kind of did some nice things last year as kind of a scat back.
Yeah, I would like to see him back too.
Yeah. It's obviously McCaffrey at this point I don't believe is going to be moved. And then you've got Donta Foreman, and then you got Chuba, who you drafted last year, who, I know he's not one of your favorite players. But we've seen some flashes from him, some good things. So we'll I guess he's going to kind of be that rotational piece as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Foreman can bring. If McCaffrey can stay healthy, that's really a very good 1-2 punch between McCaffrey and Foreman, especially if you bring Foreman in and, then you can um, move McCaffrey out into the slot, match him up with some linebackers and safeties, create some really nice mismatches. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'd like to see Abdullah stay, but if McCaffrey stays healthy, he's kind of a worse version of McCaffrey anyway. So.
Listen, man, I've been saying this for the longest time, and I think hopefully the Panthers finally understand this. In today's NFL, you can use 3-4 different running backs to get the job done. You got a guy like McCaffrey who, when healthy, is the best non-quarterback offensive player, to me, in the NFL. You look at Chuba Hubbard, a guy that has a somewhat similar skill set. He's a speedy back. He's got moves. You can use him. And then you got Donta Foreman, who's a guy that's going to bust it up the middle and hit you in the mouth and keep running for a couple more yards. I like it. Let's come up with something and let's use these guys as much as we can without, just demolishing McCaffrey to the ground. I think it's
Yeah.
a very easy thing to do.
Yeah, and that's going to be on, Ben McAdoo, see what he can do. And he's had successful offenses in the past, so hopefully he can translate that to the personnel the Panthers have now. And honestly, if you look at what the Panthers have compared to, what he had with the Giants, I mean, the talent level's there. The talent level is just as good as what the Giants had at the time, if not better. So you would expect that the Panthers would be able to put a nice product on the field offensively this year, especially with
Yeah,
their improvements on the offensive line.
absolutely. I
Of course,
agree.
that all comes down to quarterback, I guess.
Very true. So obviously we like what we see on paper here. We like the fits. We're going to hold out to be determined. We want to see the play on the field, but for the most part, looking at it now, I think this is a very solid free agency class. To me, best things go to obviously doing something to fix the offensive line. I can get behind that any day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Pulling up
now,
now some mock drafts that the Panthers had posted on their website. Figure we could talk a little draft, being that the Panthers have really set up their free agency so that they can, really go best player available or draft a rookie quarterback and stick him into a pretty nice situation on offense. And frankly, that's kind of uh, the way I'm feeling like they want to go right now.
so this we either could be reading into this too much, or maybe we're not reading into it enough, or it's a smokescreen. The way that the Panthers, like you said, have built this roster and have done free agency, obviously, quick side note, we were not in the Deshaun Watson winner circle. He ends up going to Cleveland. We'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Hey, but wasn't it a nice consolation that he didn't go to one of our division rivals like it looked like he was going to?
It was very nice, and that's something I want to touch on later as well. So, the way they've constructed this roster, they have two options they could go. They could either obviously go for a veteran like a Baker Mayfield or a Jimmy Garoppolo. For me, I wouldn't go that route, but they might. Or, the Malik Willis stock has gotten really high the past couple weeks, and I'm kind of on the train, and I think you have been as well. So just looking at what they've got now, I mean, they've got two ways they can go. They can get a veteran, and with the proper coaching and proper setup, I mean, we could be a wild card team with a solid veteran quarterback. But at the same time, do you want to go that route, or do you want to go for all the potential like you see in a guy like Malik Willis? That's the route I would go. What do you think the Panthers are thinking right now?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this a little bit. I've pretty much been preaching the offensive line thing, but I'm starting to rethink that just because I mean, we assume the Panthers are going to be bad enough this year that they'll have a shot at a franchise quarterback next year. But we don't know that, you know? So if you don't take a swing on a quarterback this year in the first round. Well, what if you end up picking even where you're at right now, number 6, number 7, number 8, 9, whatever next year? You finish around the same. Even if you finish in that range, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are getting hyped up enough that there's a good chance both those guys are going to go top 2 next year. Someone's going to move up and make those picks. You have an opportunity this year to most likely take a swing on one of these 2 quarterbacks. Like you said, Malik Willis has been skyrocketing up draft boards lately. There's a chance. I mean, I don't really see it happening, but there have been rumors that, Detroit might take a swing on him with the number 2 pick, just because he's a guy who has all those physical tools that are just so enticing when you're looking for an NFL quarterback. So, if you have a shot at a guy like that, it's hard to say no, because even if there are things on tape that are big red flags, the dude has all the physical traits in the world. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's a great guy, good leader, the perfect type of dude you want to build around. You look at guys like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, that's probably the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Both of those guys were seen as high risk, high reward quarterbacks coming out of college. I believe Josh Allen was number 10. I think they were both taken right around the 10th pick in the draft. So they weren't, the number 1 guys, either one of them, when they were coming out. Josh Allen, was I can't remember. He might have been taken after Josh. I don't think he was taken after Josh Rosen, but he was right in the same couple of picks as Josh Rosen. And then, Patrick Mahomes was taken after Mitch Trubisky. So going with the sure thing is never really a sure thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with you. I would rather draft a guy with potential and him be a bust than draft a guy that I know is going to be pro ready, but he's kind of already at his max. And I think any normal person would say that. And I agree with what you're saying, as well as the Panthers. People, a lot of people are saying, oh, just take an offensive lineman this year and then draft a quarterback next year. Okay, it sounds nice when you say it, but you look at other teams, the Panthers, I don't think are bad enough to be a bottom 3 team. I mean, they've got enough talent where they're going to win at least 5-6 games at least. That's not good enough to get a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud from Ohio State. So I'm like you. I mean, it's nice to say that, but let's say they miss on a quarterback this year. They don't take one. They draft the offensive lineman. They're not bad enough to get a quarterback next year. Then what are you going to do? You're going to draft another line. I mean, it eventually you got to take a swing at a guy. And you look at a kid like Malik Willis, he's got all the great traits that you want, the physical capabilities. He's a fantastic guy. He's got a high motor, good character. I mean, I could understand if he had all the traits in the world and maybe he was a little bit of a, slacker in the gym. Maybe he doesn't want to put in the work, but the guy seems like he wants to work hard. And he wants to do well. I mean, that's about all the potential you could need to do well. Like I said, I don't see why you don't take a chance on the kid.
Yeah, and the Panthers, like we said, they've had a good free agency, so they've really put themselves in a position where if they get that guy, they've surrounded them with a pretty good team around them. I mean, it's not, a lights out team. There's certainly things we could improve on, but compared to what we had going last year with Sam Darnold, this, what they're putting together seems to be like something that could work a little better, especially with the new coaching additions they made. I have high hopes for those, those guys in those situations. So, it's always risky, when you draft a quarterback, especially with a top 10 pick, but you have to do it. If you want to be one of the good teams in the NFL, you have to take a chance on one of these guys. And then that brings you to the question, is it Kenny Pickett or is it Malik Willis? Well, like I said before, if you want to be one of those great teams, you got to swing for the fences. You got to take a risk with the guy who there is more risk involved, but he has the potential to be one of those game-changing, game-breaking quarterbacks. If you want to go with Kenny Pickett, that's fine. You're going to get a guy you can stick in there, and he's going to be able to make better reads and things like that. But he's not going to extend plays. He's not going to make game-breaking wow plays that Malik Willis has the potential to make if you coach him up the right way. And like I said, you look at Patrick Mahomes, you look at Josh Allen, those are the two most unstoppable forces in the league right now. Those are the two things everybody wants. Those two guys, everybody would kill to have one of those guys under center. So if you have a shot at a guy who might turn into one of those, worst case scenario, it didn't work out. You trade him in 3 or 4 years and you try again. That's how I see
it. You took the words right out of my mouth, and I pretty much agree with everything you're saying.
But, yeah. I think with that being said, though, I'm not convinced that the Panthers feel the same way. I feel like that might be part of the reason they're trying to build a team that you can plug a guy in and let him play, is maybe they're going to go with the guy who's more pro-ready. You know what I mean? And they want a guy that they can stick in there and instantly, make a difference. And they don't really have time to wait a year for Malik Willis to develop. So we'll see what happens, but it seems like they do have a lot of interest in in Kenny Pickett, but that could be a smokescreen. It could all be a smokescreen. They could just be planning on going best player available. They might be interested in no quarterbacks. They might be so in love with one of these guys, they're going to trade up to number 2 to get them. You just never know until the draft day comes.
I think no matter what, do not trade up. Do not trade up. Because a team I think it's BS. People just trying to drive up the price for the number 2 pick or whatever. Man, unless it's like you can give away peanuts to get it, I wouldn't do it. Stay put, because I don't think it's worth trading up unless you think he's that guy. I just don't want to see the Panthers already lose out on they've already lost out on a second and third round pick. But I think we can say for, without a shadow of a doubt, wherever we go with this pick, I mean, we're going to get either what we think is the best quarterback in the draft, one of the top offensive linemen in the draft, one of the best defensive ends in the draft, or the top safety or corner in the draft. I mean, there's positions I prefer over others, but I mean, you're getting a top tier player either way. So it's nice to be in that position, but I would prefer to see the quarterback go ahead and get taken care of.
Yeah. Well, the Panthers have invested so much draft capital in their defense over the last couple of years, and their offensive line and quarterback play has been so damn bad. I have a hard time believing this pick is going anywhere but offensive line or quarterback. And the way they're building this team, and as desperate as they've got to be right now, as hard as they went after Deshaun Watson, it feels like, David Tepper's sick of it, man. He wants his franchise quarterback. He doesn't care what it takes. He's going to roll the dice on somebody to get him. And I think it's just going to boil down to which quarterback is either available or they like better. And, like you, I hope that person is Malik Willis.
I agree. I mean, I feel the same way. So we'll see what happens. There's still some guys out there in free agency that could be brought in as well. And then there's, the talks of Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo. Panthers said they weren't interested in Baker Mayfield. I hope that's true. I don't want to make that move.
Do you want to entertain some of these ideas while we're here?
No, but we can, just for the sake.
Well, I mean, I'm so anti-Garoppolo. I do not understand the hype around that man. I think he's the most overrated player in the NFL. Go ahead.
I don't disagree. I don't understand this notion of let's just be good enough to be okay. Like,
Right.
why even go through the pain and the process of just getting to a point where you're just going to be like an okay team? I mean, what's the incentive in that? I would rather suck forever than be just good enough to make the playoffs, wild card every year and then lose because we just don't have the quarterback play to back it up.
Right.
I don't know who wants to sign up for that. I don't. I know you don't.
No.
A guy like Baker Mayfield, he was the number 1 overall pick. I've seen the guy play. He's done some nice things before, but I never believed in him as the number 1 overall pick. I don't want to give anything up for him. I would do a straight up deal for Sam Darnold, but that's not going to happen. So
That's funny. I was about to say the same thing.
That's about it. I mean, there's not much I would say or do.
Yeah, I just think that's a funny idea, Baker Mayfield for Sam Darnold, straight up. Because, they're both on those rookie contracts, so the money's the same. Both teams don't want the guy. Both guys desperately need out of their situations. It kind of works for everybody. It's kind of a funny proposition. And I don't really hate Baker Mayfield. I'm kind of like you. Like, I feel like he's pretty good. I'd rather have him than, like, Jimmy Garoppolo. I know he's had a really up and down young NFL career, but, the Browns for 30 years didn't have a quarterback, didn't, win a playoff game. And Baker Mayfield did those things. So I feel like people discredit him too much. I feel like he's to the point now where he's getting pretty severely underrated. Not that he's, amazing or anything, but I feel like he's a much better player than people are giving him credit for right now. And, the only way Garoppolo makes sense to me is you still draft Malik Willis, and then that's the guy he's learning behind. In that context, that makes sense to me. As far as other guys go, you look at, what's his name? Garner Minshew. I almost said Blaine Gabbert. I was thinking of all my Jaguars quarterbacks. Garner Minshew. I mean, that would be cool, but it doesn't solve any problems for you. There's no point in doing it. Who else is out there? Cam Newton. I mean, I do it, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like we've just like taken advantage of Cam Newton for a long time now. And we just like let him go live his life.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm on the Cam Newton train to bring him back if we bring back Malik Willis, I'm not opposed to him coming back. If none of this works out, we don't get a quarterback. I'm cool with just giving him one more run just because. But, I mean, listen, I'm the biggest Cam Newton fan you'll ever meet. I'm sure you know that you're also a diehard Cam Newton fan. But we can't sit here and say that at a lot of points last year, he did not look very good at all. He didn't. And he knows that, and we know that. But that's nothing to take away from him. I still would give the guy another chance if they don't draft a guy like Malik Willis. And even if they do, I would bring him back to be the backup and to mentor if he would want to do that. But, that's going to be up to him. But I would love to have Cam in the locker room and on the team. But, we can't rely on him to be the savior of the franchise. Right. It's just we're not at that point anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's a good idea too. I've heard that kicked around. I like that idea, having him, be the veteran presence for Malik Willis to learn under, kind of to pass the torch to, the keys to the city. This is my team, now it's your team. Give them a year or two to work with them, play behind them, slowly make that transition. I think that's a pretty good idea. I like that. And I think Cam Newton, at times last year was pretty ugly, but I think it's not fair to put it all on him. I mean, we were just a train wreck last year from top to bottom. If you give him a real off season and a chance to work his way into a system, this Ben McAdoo offense is supposed to be more run heavy, more downhill running. And I think that is something that could help a quarterback like Cam Newton, who's on the tail end of his career, set up some more of those play action passes so he doesn't have to work that shoulder so much. Give him some easier reads. I mean, there's a lot of things about it that makes sense.
I'm right there with you. And I think Cam Newton behind a good offensive line, which this appears that it will be a better offensive line than normal.
God, I hope so.
With the weapons we have, I mean, how could you not even try to give the guy a chance if it comes down to it? You know, so there's always that that place. And I've heard that he's probably gotten contracts from other teams, but I don't think he's gotten contracts where he would be the I mean, I don't see Cam Newton going to Seattle to be part of the rebuild. I don't see that at all. Um, I just don't. I don't really see him wanting to be a backup for anybody either, because he's just not that kind of guy. And unless it was here, and that's just my opinion, and I could be wrong, but at the end of the day, things are gonna even out, and we'll see what happens. By the way, Gonzaga did lose to Arkansas, so they're out.
I was just watching that, actually.
And that, I don't know why I picked them to win in my bracket. I don't know why, but it's all about Carolina. As long as
I pick Gonzaga too. I pick them every year, and every year like they don't make it. So like I don't know why I always pick them. I'm always like, this is the year they finally do it after all these years of not doing it.
I did.
Didn't they win it last year though?
No, they didn't.
Oh,
Baylor won.
Oh, Baylor?
Yep.
Huh.
They played against Carolina in the national championship, but they lost.
Okay.
Yeah, it must be really hard to be a Gonzaga fan, just constantly being the number one seed.
Just dominating the WAC, right? They play in the WAC, don't they?
Yeah, they
just
do.
Dominating the WAC for like 20 years and then like never winning in the tournament.
It's just like, man, at a point, it's like this shit is just so repetitive. Every year we're the one seed. Everyone says how great we are, and then we get washed in the tournament.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's going to happen if we trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, all right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. That's kind of how his life goes. And he's usually on way better teams than our team.
And I maybe was a little hard on Baker Mayfield. I think he can do a lot of nice things. I think what's really gotten him in trouble, and I don't mean this in a bad way because he's his own guy, he is who he is, but I just think, he's the type of guy that's very easy to hate on. And I feel like now that he's in the position where he's requested a trade, they already traded for another quarterback. It's very easy for everybody to be like, screw Baker Mayfield. He sucks. I knew he never was any good. He's a really easy target right now just because he's the type of guy that, he's not scared to run his mouth and say some stuff.
Well, I think it's not just the mouth running. It's just the fact that he has this attitude like it's him against the world. Like he's like the little guy that was slept on. Like he was like a 6th-round draft pick. It's like, dude, you were the first player taken in the draft. Like you weren't slept on. Like go lead the team and quit acting like you got a chip on your shoulder.
Exactly. It's like, man, I mean, they believed in you to pick you number one. I mean, go out there and just do your thing. Maybe if he kind of dialed it back a little bit, he would be a little bit better, or he would. I don't know. I don't know.
He's just like, I don't know. I mean, he's competitive, but he's like annoying competitive.
Yeah, there's a difference between like being like a competitive guy and being like, all right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
And looks like Villanova is getting ready to beat Michigan. It's great.
Oh, word.
So yeah, I mean, you're looking at the moves we made, and then now to kind of end things here tonight, we'll touch base on the Deshaun Watson and the NFC South thing. Obviously, Deshaun Watson did not come to Carolina. I think me and you were both on the train for him regarding, if he was cleared of all his charges. Excuse me. Cleared of all his charges, cleared of everything. He was tried again today, and he didn't get prosecuted or anything like that. Or didn't get in trouble. So right now he's in the clear, but the last week and a half when this whole trade was going down, and it was just it was really frustrating, but it was really fun because I went on the Carolina Huddle every day, like nonstop, and they would just have these like massive threads, like 300 pages long, about people just talking about what was going to happen. It was just kind of fun to be in that like situation, but as time went on and more reports came out, he wants to go to the Saints, he wants to go to the Falcons, there might be a surprise team jumping in. just the more and more it kind of went on, I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? I kind of don't care anymore, honestly. And that's nothing against him because he's a hell of a player, but it's just like, you know what, man, I know it's a big decision. You know, you're switching football teams. You got obviously a lot going on with your personal life and in the media, but it's like, I was kind of like, you know what, man, like at this point, I wish we could have got him, but at the same time, I just like, you know, I'm just kind of ready to move on from the situation. If he wants to come, fine. If he doesn't, then we'll just go do something else.
Yeah, it's funny because like that's something that's just like so like that never happens. Like
No.
top 5 quarterbacks just on the trade block and people just bidding for the quarterback. So that never happened. So it was pretty, it was hard to not get into it as a Panthers fan. Like, dude, are we really going to pull this off? So like you, I was like super into it, like constantly refreshing the feed and like seeing what's going on.
Yeah.
But, as it became clear that it wasn't happening, it was like I just snapped back into reality and it was like I didn't care anymore. It's like, all right, now I'll just focus on the draft.
Yeah. Once it was over, I was like, all right, cool. Let's move on.
Yeah, it was like for a while it was weird. It was like, is this a dream? And then like, oh, okay, we're not getting him. Yeah, now it feels like real life again. This feels like the pain of being a Panthers fan. So I'm right back where I belong. Here we go.
So
Draft season is our Super Bowl.
As you mentioned earlier, the consolation of not getting him is that he's not in the NFC South. Man, I'm tired today, which is great because we don't have to play him. But if you look at it from the perspective of, first off, the Falcons, which it seemed like it was kind of almost a done deal at that point, but they were going to have to pull off a massive trade to get rid of Matt Ryan. So they seemingly pissed off their all-time franchise quarterback, didn't get the quarterback that they wanted, and then ended up trading the guy anyway.
Dude, the collateral damage of Deshaun Watson. All the quarterbacks he made homeless just by like looking for a new team.
I mean, it was a weird thing. It's like, okay, we have Matt Ryan. He's on the very tail end of his career. We're gonna get Deshaun Watson. Okay, cool. But the things that they would have to give up, who would Deshaun Watson have to play with in Atlanta? I don't even say this because I'm a Panthers fan and I don't like Atlanta, but looking at it, their best receiver is gone for a year. They don't really have they've got Cordell Patterson. They got Kyle Pitts. I'll give them that. And then their offensive line is terrible. They don't have
Kyle Pitts was rumored to be part of the trade, so he wouldn't have been there.
So if you probably would have had to give up guys anyway. So who would he have to play with? I would rather stay in Tennessee, or not Tennessee. I'd rather stay in Texas before I go there.
Dude, he would have been like that Will Smith meme from Fresh Prince where he's just standing in the empty living room by himself. That would have just been him on the field, basically. And
my biggest fear was him going to the Saints because we all know that we hate the Saints very much. And I'm glad they didn't get him, and I'm really tired. Props to the Saints GM and their front office because they have found the best loopholes in GM history. Because to them, the salary cap is a complete myth. Does not exist.
I think last time I saw they were like 10 million over or something. I think it might be more than that now. And at one point, it was like they were over more than like any team ever. So I don't know what the hell they've been doing, but
they've made it work to this point. I mean, they don't have a quarterback. I mean, they got Jameis Winston coming back, but I mean, they've got a team. They've got good players, and they're $70 million. They're in more debt than the United States is right now.
Dude,
and they somehow
ticker just ticking.
It's ticking, and they make it work somehow. I don't get it. So, and the Browns were allegedly out of it. I'm sitting there at work one day, and then boom, he gets traded to the Browns. I'm like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It was wild.
You know what happened? Money happened. They said, we'll give you the most guaranteed money anyone's ever seen. And he said, all right, maybe I do want to go to you guys.
Same thing with Tyreek Hill.
Same thing
Just
with Tyreek
randomly
Hill.
Gets traded within 20-minute time span.
Dude, I've never seen a player get traded that fast. Like, it was like Tyreek Hill may seek a trade. 5 minutes later, Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins.
It was quick.
I mean, it was
Super
quick.
And from what I read, I didn't read a ton of stuff, but the Chiefs actually offered him a pretty good deal, and I guess he turned it down. And he said, "No, I want more money," and he went
Really?
to the Dolphins. I think so.
Yeah, I believe what I saw said he's the highest paid wide receiver ever now, which is
Which,
like he's really good, but I don't know if he's like highest paid ever good.
well, the Dolphins. I mean, they've went all in. I mean, it's on to it now. I mean, they got the greatest coach in NFL history, Mike McDaniel. All right, they've got weapons. They have a solid team, solid defense. I mean, they got guys. The AFC is like its own league right now. It's so tough.
Dude, that's like the super NFL right now.
I'm
They
so glad we don't play in the AFC.
they're all just gonna beat the hell out of each other, man. They're just gonna beat each other up, and then whoever gets out of the AFC and lands in the Super Bowl is gonna take a knockout punch from probably the Buccaneers because that's like the only team in the NFC. And then Tom Brady's gonna win his like 14th championship.
If you're an NFC team that's going to be competitive, all you have to do is just win like 9 games next year, and it does not matter. You're good. You're in there. Because in the AFC next year, I mean, I guarantee this now. There's going to be an 11 or a 10 or 11 win team that does not get in.
I don't know. I don't know if I can agree with that because I feel like even though the teams are really good, they'll just beat each other up to the point that everyone will have a record around 500. Do you know what I mean? Or slightly over 500.
It's possible.
We'll see. We're gonna remember that. See who's right.
All right. It won't matter because the Panthers will be in the playoffs and we won't care. So,
dude, we'll be 6-11 in the playoffs. It's gonna be sweet.
We will. And could you imagine if Tom Brady didn't come back? Oh, the NFC South would be completely up for grabs.
Yeah, assuming the Bucs never really filled their quarterback void, because I think, with Tom Brady gone, the next on their depth chart would have been Kyle Trask. I don't think there's any way they would have started next season with Kyle Trask at quarterback.
No, I could totally see them getting like Baker or Garoppolo, like if that ended up being.
Yeah, Baker, that would have been a cool place for Baker to land, just not from a Panthers fan perspective, but from like a NFL perspective, because he went from a good situation, but they kind of ran him out of town to a situation where it's like, dude, you got everything, just go win. And that would have been like a good test for him to see if he could really do it.
So, but I think we all can agree that this has been the absolute best NFL offseason of all time.
Dude, it has been absolutely bananas, and I'm loving it.
You never see this in the NFL. I mean, free agency happens. You see some guys get paid a lot of money. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. But the trades and the players that are getting signed for the money they're getting signed, the places they're getting traded to, the places they're going to is nuts.
Yeah, dude. And it's just constant. It's like your phone starts vibrating, and then like before it stops vibrating from the notification, it starts vibrating again from the next notification. And it's just off the hook all the time.
And it's like, I'm more of an NFL guy than an NBA guy, but the NBA offseason is usually pretty good because there's a lot of movement, a lot of stuff happening. Yeah. NFL, if they can have off seasons like this every year, dude, no one's going to give 2 craps about the NBA.
Yeah, it's like a Madden off. And honestly, I think that's where this comes from is, how crazy NBA off seasons are. Honestly, it's probably here to stay. It's probably the new normal because it adds so much more entertainment to the NFL, which is already the biggest spectacle in sports. So,
yeah, and I think everybody's here for it. Because there gets that period before the draft and then after the draft where you just, man, there's nothing going on, and you're watching. I don't know, whatever you're watching. Not football.
Baseball.
Not baseball. Hell no.
It's the 3 biggest sports, Tanner. What are the 3 biggest sports? The NFL, college football, and the NFL offseason.
That's right. That's it. That's the big 3. So there you go. But yeah, Panthers overall, I like what they're doing. It's all could come out to a wash depending on what they do with the quarterback situation. But right now I like where we're at. and we'll see how it goes from there.
No doubt.
I do have one complaint, though.
Oh, tell me.
Matt Rule is still the coach.
Not for long. Not for long.
Well, if he wins this year, then we'll
I know, but honestly, Tanner, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, because I don't know how likely that is.
I remember when we were 3-0 last year, and I was like, yes.
And we were like, the process is working.
Go back and watch the episodes.
Please don't. It's got to be embarrassing. There's got to be some bad takes in there, man.
Oh, man. Matt Rule is the best coach ever.
Who knows?
But
hey, man, no one will ever top Terry Bradshaw, though, all right? Saying that.
Holy shit, I thought about that earlier today.
Sam Darnold, the Panthers have found their greatest franchise quarterback of all time.
Man, Cam Newton must have never done anything good in his career. Jake Delhomme must have done – those two of them combined did nothing that it could equal starting 3-0 that season.
No.
Nothing.
Against two bad teams. The Saints weren't bad.
Yeah. And just because Sam Darnold ran for a couple rushing touchdowns, so like, yep, Cam Newton, complete scrub. Get him out of here.
Dude, will there ever be a more bizarre – like hot streak ever in any sport about anything? And like 4 games, he had like 5 rushing touchdowns. Sam Darnold. Like,
weird.
What?
Like, yeah, it was weird.
Leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns a month into the season.
Like, he's probably like 10th all time on the Panthers rushing touchdown list.
I would definitely for quarterbacks.
I know. I think just in general. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Look it up. I mean you've got Cam Newton, you've got D'Angelo Williams, you got Jonathan Stewart, McCaffrey, and probably maybe Nick Goings, Brad Hoover, Deshaun Foster.
Brad Hoover might not have had 5 touchdowns in his.
He might not
in his career.
That's like your 7 career backs right there.
Nah, dude.
He might be like the number 10 spot. I'm telling you.
Nah, dude. Well, maybe number 10. But you got Deshaun Foster, Stephen Davis.
Okay, so that's 8. Okay, I'm probably wrong.
Kuka. You forget, like there was a generation of Panthers like older than us.
There was. I thought that would be a good take.
But I'm sure he's
okay.
I'm sure he's a lot higher than he should be.
He's top 15. Look it up. Do it right now. Can you pull it up?
I don't know. Let me see.
I have to see it. Where does Sam Darnold rank on the Panthers' all-time rushing touchdown list?
All right. Let's see how accessible that is. Do you know who's number 1?
I would say Cam Newton.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Touchdowns. All right. Oh, they're sorted by – oh, wait. Oh, here we go. All right. So, at 5, Sam Darnold is tied for 16th.
I said top 15. All right. I was close.
You want to know who he's tied with at 5? It's a pretty good list, tied at 16th. Cameron Artis-Payne, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Jake Delhomme, Chuba Hubbard, which is surprising. I didn't realize he had 5 touchdowns this year, and Curtis Samuel.
Great Curtis Samuel.
That's a nice little list of
and he only did it. He did that in 3 games. Most of those guys played at least a couple seasons here.
That's why he's GOAT Darnold. Nick Goings had 6, by the way.
Great Nick Goings.
Lamar Smith had 7. That was the other running back I was trying to think of.
Funny, I wouldn't really say this is a funny story, but factoid, Nick Goings actually lives in Wilmington.
I knew that, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
My dad, he works at a body shop here in town, and he's brought his car in a couple times to get work done. He's like, yeah, the guy used to play for the Panthers. I was like, that's cool.
Dude, Deshaun Foster only had 10 career rushing touchdowns.
Really?
Yeah.
I will say this: when I was a kid and I was like just understanding like Panthers football, I would always make a joke to my dad. I'd be like, "Dad, watch me do the Deshaun Foster run," and then I just run and immediately fall down because
Dude,
I feel like every time I watched him play, he would just run right into the middle of the offensive line and just fall down.
the Super Bowl dive he had was absolutely legendary.
That I'll give him that, but overall,
McCaffrey's already fourth. Dude,
well,
if he could stay healthy, he would have passed D'Angelo Williams by now.
exactly. Which it's really weird because like D'Angelo Williams, from what I've like seen, like that man like hates the Panthers.
Yeah, I know.
It's almost like I for a while like he would say stuff like, "What is this guy's deal? Like, why does he like not like the Panthers so much?" It's just kind of like a bizarre thing. And like I see people online like anytime he brings up the Panthers, they're just like, "Shut up, no one cares."
Dude, Panthers fans do not like D'Angelo Williams anymore.
And he does not like us. So
And he does not like us back.
I don't know, man. I don't know what happened, but
Dude, 46 rushing touchdowns all time. Third in Panthers history. I was thinking about him earlier actually because I was thinking I was looking at draft stuff and I was thinking about how the way I was thinking James Cook's running style reminds me of D'Angelo Williams.
who's James? Who's that?
He's one of the running backs from Georgia.
Oh, okay.
He's Dalvin Cook's brother, actually.
Oh, really? That's right.
Yeah. He's kind of his running style is very Dalvin Cookish, but it also reminds me of D'Angelo Williams too. I don't think he's gonna be as good as Dalvin Cook though.
Hey, you know what? Regardless of what happened with D'Angelo Williams, that 2008 2009 year with him and Jay Stu, man,
That was something special.
that was fun to watch. That was fun to watch,
Dude. I always think of that Monday night game against the Bucks, where
yes.
Jonathan Stewart stiff armed the hell out
Big
of
stiff arm. Man.
Rondé Barber.
I remember that game because I was really young and I wasn't allowed to stay up like on a Monday night that late yet. And so I remember watching the first half and I fell asleep. And back then, like, cell phones weren't really – I didn't even have a cell phone. I had to go on my desktop and look up, did the Panthers win? And they did. And I got so happy.
Yeah. I think I was in ninth grade that year. Good times. Man, good times.
You're really young.
I'm really young? Or I'm really ugly. What'd you say?
I said you're really young. I was just being sarcastic.
Oh. Yeah. Well, not for long. Getting up there quick.
But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a great episode here. A lot of good conversations. Next time we talk, maybe a couple more free agency moves. Maybe I did see this. I know we keep saying we're gonna go. Just real quick, I did see that that Sheena Quick lady. We talked about this. Sam Darnold possibly being on the move. Don't know if that's true. It was possibly also involved like a younger player that we have. I couldn't imagine it being anyone spectacular, but just trying to get rid of him and that cap, I guess. So,
hey man, you get rid of Sam Darnold, and I'm here to listen. You know why this is happening? In my conspiracy mind,
sure.
The Panthers are going to draft a quarterback, but if we keep Sam Darnold, PJ Walker's going to be the odd man out, and Matt Rule cannot have that. PJ Walker stays on the roster no matter what.
Temple forever.
Temple forever. And I think Panthers fans are okay with that. We all like PJ Walker. He's like, we like the fact that he's out there trying. He's not very good, but we like him.
It's better than Sam Darnold. But
hey man, he's the only player on our team with an MVP. It's an XFL MVP, but it's an MVP.
That's true. It's very true. Very true. But all right, guys. We will catch you next week. Thank you guys for tuning in to Primetime Carolina as usual. And as always, go Panthers.
Go Panthers. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button. But also, I don't think anyone's going to listen this long. But if you do, if you hear this, hit that.
If you do, Duke's losing tonight. Carolina's winning tomorrow. Goodbye.
All right. Peace out, everybody.